But I'm somewhat stunned by the shirt that our city administrator is wearing. I'm having trouble getting my eyes to focus.
So
it is a stunning shirt.
You just fear the mule.
Fear the mule. Let that be written into the minutes.
Somebody get him a Corona.
Well, welcome to the Wednesday, September 4th, 2019 meeting of the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority. Roll call. Bob Gunsel.
Here.
Tyler Kinley. Marie Clough. Here. Howard Lazarus.
Here.
Jessica Leetow.
Yes.
Joan Lowenstein. Here. Molly McFarland. Here. Darren McKinnon.
Present.
John Mowat. Rishi Narayan. Keith Orr. Full Weiss.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thanks, Susan. Can I ask for a motion for the approval of the board meeting agenda? Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or amendments? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. The agenda stands. All right. So the next section of the meeting is audience participation. Ed Violmetti.
Hi, my name is Ed Violmetti. I work downtown at Workentile, which is a co-working space with a DDA bike rack out front on the 100 block of South Main. And my commute takes me from the Burns Park area across the Stadium Bridge to Pioneer High School, and from there through a route as of yet unperfected to downtown. So this is a discussion, I hope, about, and some comments about safe routes to schools and the DDA's role in promoting those. I spoke in front of City Council last night regarding the bicycle parking situation at Pioneer High School, and had I talked with Susan before the meeting. She mentioned the DDA had provided a bike rack at Slauson School as a temporary test sort of setup. I'll note that the Pioneer has moved all their entrances to the stadium side, and as a consequence, the covered bike parking at the gym side is not available, and there are like, I don't know, a dozen spots for a dozen bikes. So, and there's acres of parking. Well, not free, but like acres of parking. So the opportunity, I think, is for the DDA to get involved in some appropriate way with promoting safe routes to school or safe routes to downtown, whatever the thing is. I mean, for me, it's literally one safe route to school and another safe route to work, so both are relevant. The specific request, I think, is to learn more about both temporary and permanent bike hoops, how much they cost, who makes them, where do they get stored in the off season, how reliable are they, how heavy are they suitable for metal shop projects, all sorts of questions, logistical questions about that. And then, so that the neighborhood to downtown interface along South Main Street is not an ideal bicycle route, and I have not yet bicycled down South Main to the bottom and then up that hill, but as I recall, there's not really very much infrastructure there. And the DDA district extends all the way to Mosley, I think. So there's opportunity for infrastructure along that, whether it be sharrows or like whatever, right? There's opportunity. So getting into the DDA district is one problem, and then once you're in the DDA district, making sure that there's routes that are reasonable there. So like a specific request regarding more information about racks, and maybe the DDA has a spare that they could share for a month, and more generally about the safe routes to downtown, safe routes to school, sort of things. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Jim Mogensen.
Yep.
Jim, did I say your name correctly?
Yeah. Jim Mogensen. So back in July, I spoke at the Regents,
I normally do that because it's during the art fair time. I don't have to worry about bumping anyone else off the Regents list. And so the way I formatted my comments was to give them a performance review. And performance review, and I said there were 3 things they needed to work on, and one was financial. I have some concerns about some financial things that are happening at the medical center. The second was their operational, protecting their operations, and the third was their reputational, some of the places that they're getting money from. The second one was about operations, and I believe it really is true, as Mr. Lazarus pointed out soon after that meeting, that the traffic is getting so bad that it's going to really start shutting down the city. I live on Packard. And I think over time, since nothing, what I mean, the reason that people are living outside the city of Ann Arbor and working here are rational. There's a rational reason people live in Canton. All right? It doesn't take that long to get from Canton. But eventually, that will start to become a bigger and bigger problem. If it starts to take people a couple of hours to get into work at the university, that's a problem. People will decide maybe we need to consider other things. And so we have this whole dynamic, right? There's this whole problem where one of the problems we have is the finances. It's a known problem. Everybody knows the problem. It's an impossible problem to solve, right? The university always says, no, we already know that. We just don't bother to deal with it. But we've been doing that for so long, for 50 years, if not longer, that finally it's starting to become a problem, a true operational problem. People can't figure out where they're going to park. They can't, right? Eventually, that's going to impact both the university's operations and the city's operations. People are going to have to think that through when they're figuring out where they're going to live, how they're going to do it. And I personally don't believe that simply some of the planning solutions that we've tried to implement are going to be enough. It's going to help a little bit, but it's not going to change the fundamental problem. And so when you look at the tax base, I mean, it's all in the urbanized area and not outside. People buy houses by the size of the mortgage they can get, and that's just how it works, right? And so as I say, it's rational why they're doing that and driving in. And I talked to my brother-in-law, who's an AT&T person, drives around a lot. He said, yeah, it really is a lot worse, even in the last couple of years. I came from this meeting, from a Watts meeting, where they had the folks from the state talking about transportation planning and what those timelines are. So one of the reasons for speaking to you now is if we're going to really start to address some of those problems, we need to start doing that now, because they're already figured out what they're going to try to fund in 2023. The timelines on transportation planning are really, really long and really hard to figure out. So it's important to start doing that now. If we wait another 5 years, I would say that we really are going to have that problem. It's one of those issues. There was a time back in the 80s when the university did actually write a check to the city. And they say, oh, you should just get the legislature to, put in the revenue sharing money. And I say, oh, you don't have any tuition problems. You just get the legislature to fund you more, right? It's not really a real response. So I think we need, as a city, both in the downtown and outlying areas, to really figure out how to do that. Thank you very much for your time.
Jim, thank you for your comments. There will be time at the end of the meeting for additional public comment if anyone else has comments. Reports from city boards and commissions. Ray Detter.
For several years, I've been using the word connectivity to begin many of the talks that I've given to the group gathered here. And connectivity remains one of the ones I keep using. Sometimes I use the old ones again. But for several years, connectivity has been a basic part of the Citizens Advisory Council thinking on the future not only of the library block, the Ann Arbor District Library, Martin Properties, Liberty Plaza, History, historic and residential sites, the UM Credit Union site, but also a former YMCA site and transit center, the Allen Creek Greenway changes on William Street, Ashley First West and East Huron, more recently, beyond Carytown, Broadway, the DTE site, and even North Main have been a part of our considerations. Our perspectives must be expanded. What we do on the library lot must take into consideration connectivity with all these areas, whether walking, on a bicycle, in a car, a bus, or a truck, must be part of our planning. Last night I had the opportunity to be with the Citizens Advisory Council at their meeting. We were joined by some other people. There were 11 of us gathered there to talk about the nature of connectivity and other sorts of issues, particularly going back again because it's current with the library block. Because in the library block at this point, we now have a committee of 9, and that committee is meeting at this particular point, has had meetings, and as far as I can see, is having a new sort of approach to the library block. We were lucky to have Norm Tyler, who lives in the Old Fort Ward area, a former teacher at Eastern Michigan, with us last night. He brought with him the charts we see a lot more of at this particular point. The charts which actually show where things are, replacing this with that and all that sort of thing. And I think at this particular point, the way that we're approaching it may lead to something that can be positive for the downtown and for the entire area. Because at the Citizens Advisory Council, we have extended, for our thinking, the downtown. We've extended it up to Lower Town. We've extended it in different directions from the downtown. We've extended it to the tree line. And the city of Ann Arbor has also done that. And we hope that at some particular point we're going to be able to have a way of actually measuring what it is that we need to do to make additional improvements, and also have the willingness to do it. And I hope to be a part of that as we proceed in the near future, and I think Norm Tyler is going to do a very good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. All right, next up, DDA members' communications. Anybody besides me? Then I'll just make my one monthly comment, which is that, as many folks here know, I do monthly downtown halls, coffee conversations, just an informal way to talk about DDA business, questions, concerns. This evening, I'm delighted to share that the CERC has offered their venue for the downtown hall, so I'll be there, which is 210 South 1st. From 7 to 8:30. It is a second floor venue, but it is ADA accessible. So there's an elevator and it's barrier free all throughout the space. So again, that's this evening at Cirque Bar, 210 South 1st, 7 to 8:30. Seeing nothing else, Executive Director Communications.
Thank you. I have two things to put on your table. The first is a reminder of our annual work session with City Council. This will be in October. On the 14th at 7 p.m. at CTN. As before, it's a chance for the DDA and the City Council to talk together about, it's specifically by contract, we speak about the public parking system. But the last few years, it's also been an opportunity to talk about other things. And it could be all things from zoning, it could be goals and priorities that the council may have. It's a chance really to talk together. So putting that on your agenda. And then the second thing is to share with you last night, City Council considered the Ann and Ashley garage expansion, and reporting back to you that definitively we heard unanimity around not pursuing the office build out and the commercial build out. So which is helpful. As you know, we've been struggling to figure out how to address critical space needs at Maynard for our customer service area, and it's helpful to know that that's not on the table either. We keep checking things off our list. What I heard, though, was somewhat more mixed about the expansion of the parking system. So we're going to come back to council with that specifically as a standalone item, and it'll be very useful to hear definitively if council wants to add parking, or definitively if council does not want to add parking. And as much of what we do falls to that question, I think it's very helpful to have some declarative results from council. So we'll go back to council, outline again what the goals of the project are, what the project encompasses, and hopefully get some feedback on the Ann Ashley expansion.
Can I ask a clarifying question? You said that it was a definitive no to do anything or spend any money or do any kind of renovations at Maynard as well?
No, heard nothing about that.
Okay.
What was on the table last night was an Ann Ashley project that included $4 million for an office build-out, or at some point would not include that office build-out. We didn't get to the Maynard portion of this at all.
Okay.
But we heard instead that building out the space at Ann Ashley was too prohibitively high as a way to address customer service needs. So that's very helpful. And so we're back at Operations Committee. We'll be back at the table trying to consider ways to make the space available better for our customers. And regardless, if the expansion goes forward, one of the goals of the expansion was to bring utilities to the site. We'll stub them and leave it. And at some future point, there can be another group ahead of us who may consider the same question. But for right now, we know at least the council does not support a commercial build-out at the Inn in Ashley.
Susan, I have a clarifying question as well. For the work session, will we be back at CTN like we were last year?
We will be.
Okay.
And to that end, under our contract, our administrator formally presents the agenda. But I would urge all of you, if you could talk with me about items that you'd like to talk about, I'd welcome it so we can be sure it's on the agenda. I know last year, for instance, we got into areas around downtown development. I know for some at our committee discussions, we're challenged by the city requiring parking under its zoning, often in places that don't really need parking. So revisiting a question whether council can, in fact, was touched on last night, can downtown become parking exempt? I mean, those are things that we're wrestling with to get their feedback on. So if you've got topics, please let me know, or someone let our administrator know, and we'll weave it into an agenda to make sure it's a productive meeting.
Thanks, Susan. Thank you. All right, so next up is the approval of the August meeting minutes. Can I ask for a motion for approval?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or amendments to the August minutes? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, it's a tough group to work with. All right, moving into the subcommittee reports, Capital Improvements Committee, Molly.
Yes. And do we want to bring up Amber and Laura now?
Let's go as we go through the projects,
Okay.
yeah, and see if we have project by project questions.
Right. We know where I'm going with it. All right, some updates on projects. Let's start with 5th in Detroit. So we talked about the stop compliance evaluation. An important project goal had always been to make pedestrian crossings safer. So to that end, the project design added crosswalks and a median to eliminate the double threat. Before and after data documenting an increase in drivers who stop for pedestrians went from 52% up to 97% compliance. So we looked a lot at that. We looked at how we're promoting that. Really great stat, I think, for all of us to hang our hat on. Fuller evaluation. So we talked a lot about how this was a snapshot in time. Looks really positive. Everybody's really excited. Let's make sure that we continue to watch how that evolves. So we're going to be looking at it again this fall to measure stop compliance as well as speed and traffic volume. So all looking good. Bikeway, do we ask questions in between, or do we just keep plowing through it?
People typically let you know when they have questions.
Okay.
It's a fearless bunch.
All right. Bikeway education and outreach. So also talked a lot about the campaign around awareness and education. Laura's doing a great job, showed us her multifaceted approach on how we're getting that message out there. So it was really exciting to see that as well. For William Street, the contractor plans to pave between Division and 5th Ave this week. Next week, the resurfacing work will begin between Main and Division. The goal is to get a large portion of the bikeway open as quickly as possible.
And on this one, I will ask a question. So moving closer to Maine, obviously that feels a little bit sensitive. Can you tell us a little bit about what this next phase of work is going to look like?
And I'll ask Liz pop up if I miss anything. So the next phase of work isn't as intense as the phase we're just wrapping up, which included some water main work. This next phase of work is primarily resurfacing, which is why we're tackling it all as a big chunk. And that will allow us to go back and add the bikeway elements so that we can get the bikeway open and hopefully have a celebration. The phase following that will be west of Main Street, which again includes water main work. But that will begin sometime in mid to late October, and that's the last phase.
Are there any particular workarounds with AAA along that block?
We've talked with them about that. We talked about switching the direction of the traffic detour, but their preference was to keep it as it is now, which is eastbound. That's easiest for most of their routes. And then they do make that turn from 5th Avenue to 4th quite often. They will just detour that one block south.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, moving on to Huron. So MDOT has approved and indicated it will pay for the new 5th Ave signal and no turn on red sign. MDOT has not yet agreed to new leading pedestrian indicators nor replacing the Hawk signal with a full signal, but it will undertake its own examination this fall.
And to be clear, this is the intersection at 3rd and Chapin, for folks who might not be familiar.
DDA contractor is paving 4th Ave today and reopening the street. DTE work and a city street light replacement project continues. Reopening the street, Amber, when is that? Can't be today.
4th Avenue today.
Today,
So-
it will be open today?
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay.
And then, depending on the work that the city contractor that's replacing the signals, the streetlights needs to do, or DTE's work, they may close it again in the future. But our contractor will be substantially out of there today, and then we have a little bit of work installing streetlights later on.
Okay, thank you.
Amber, while you're up, you mentioned the streetlights. We had a communication from Maura a couple weeks ago. It was going to start on the 24th of August. I haven't seen any go up. Is that something's changed, obviously?
Yes, so we are having some shipping challenges with the streetlight manufacturer. So we've received some of the components, but not all of them. So we're following up with them to understand why we haven't gotten all of the components so that we can install them. So we're waiting on a call today.
Okay. And then finally, the DDA contractor is wrapping up work on the south side over the next few weeks. Work on the north side between 3rd and Main Street began today. The next committee meeting will be Wednesday, September 18th at 11 a.m., right after the partnerships committee. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? Okay.
Great job. And that was Molly's first report out, and you did a great job.
Good job.
All right, Operations Committee, Phil?
Yep, thank you. First thing I wanted to discuss is the committee reviewed a request from Mortensen Development for 27 parking permits for a proposed development, a new hotel at the current Firestone location at the corner of Division and Huron. We asked a bunch of questions, including if these permits were required by zoning, if off-peak permits would suffice, if the developer had plans to encourage guests to use air ride, what trash handling, all kinds of stuff like that. So we didn't make any decisions, we didn't vote on anything, we just asked a bunch of questions, and we're going to review that request at a future meeting, and at some point probably have the developer in to ask questions directly. So I just thought that it was really kind of neat to see something like this pop up, you know, as a result of, maybe not as a result of, but the timing with the redo of Huron. To me, it's pretty cool. That's why we're redoing Huron. Parking and transportation report, which is in your packet. Here's a couple tidbits from that. The modem and software updates for the ePark machines has been completed. The public also made enhancements to its maintenance work order system. The Parking Enforcement and Operations Group was asked to weigh in on a plan to expand the number of loading zones after 6 p.m. to address a request for food delivery vehicles to get in close to the curb, such as Uber Eats. The special event meter bag fee waiver report. The committee reviewed the report, which is in your packet. I guess the summary would be that in addition to all the other ways that DDA supports downtown events, we provided over $130,000 in parking meter fee waivers for events this year so far. So pretty good, I would say. I think that's pretty much it from the operations committee. Our next meeting is September 25th at 11 a.m. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding the report? Thank you.
Finance Committee, Bob?
Thank you. The August Finance Committee meeting was canceled due to lack of items for the agenda. We expect a big meeting in September. That meeting is set for September 26th at 1 p.m. We'll be looking at the status of the audit and financials and more.
Okay. And the audit will be complete by that time?
Sure.
We don't have a date actually when the audit will be complete, but they did start yesterday.
Great.
And they'll come back again today to finish up, I believe, and then it'll just be question here or there and doing their work. But we should have fourth quarter financials for the meeting.
We're on schedule.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks.
Okay, partnerships in the Economic Development Committee, Joan?
Yes, our new fearless leader Tyler is not here, so I will step in.
Thank you.
What we did was we basically brainstormed for our coming year work plan and format. One of the things that we talked about was really the format of our partnerships meeting that we have with the partners. So that traditionally it has kind of evolved into really just being a lot of updates, where we have planning commission, city council members, AATA, and now Washington Community College come in and talk to us about what they're doing, and we sort of,
And the library.
and the library, and we sort of leave it at that really, as letting everybody know kind of what we're doing. So we talk about making it a little more than informational and more interactive. In other words, looking at how we can really be partners. What is it that the partners can do for each other? So we said that what we should do is focus on the things that are of interest to us, the DDA, and look at, for instance, the downtown city properties like the Y Lot, the 415 West Washington, Library Lane, and say, here's, here are kind of the things that we've thought about and done in these areas. How can you contribute? How can we contribute to each other? Looking at downtown alleys, which has been a big issue, and kind of trying to merge our visions with the city solid waste plan's implementation there. And then with economic development, how we can continue to nurture job growth and continue to support a diverse and strong economy. So I think that's our idea. It's possible that when we meet again with the partners, it may take some selling. Like, oh, you have to do something this week. But that's mainly what we looked at, was working out how we're going to interact with the partners. So I'm sure Tyler and the rest of us would appreciate any kind of input from the rest of you as well, as you see things. Oh, here's something that you can work out, and talk to in partnerships in the coming month.
And I'll augment that a little bit because I was at the same meeting. So take a little bit of selling on the change in format, but also asking for input on how the meeting can continue to add value. Like you said, right now our format is essentially the partners report out, which is of limited value not only for the partners, but for the people doing the reporting. They already give these reports in multiple venues. Does it really make sense for them to do it again here? Maybe the answer is yes, but now's an opportunity to kind of inquire into that. So we'll be looking to see if there's a way that the Partners Committee can continue to add more value to the partners that make the time to come to it. Great. Thanks, Jen.
So the next partnership meeting is Wednesday, September 18th at 9 a.m. That's a week later than usual.
Mm-hmm. And this is the meeting with our partners.
With the partners.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jen. So for executive committee meeting, we reviewed the board meeting agenda. Our next executive committee meeting will be Wednesday, October 2nd at 11 a.m. Is there any new business? Okay. Seeing none, is there any other audience participation? Ed Bielmetti.
Always happy to get 2 chances to speak, but it's not midnight yet. And I haven't had lunch yet, and I have a 1 o'clock meeting. So just by means of information, if none of you, or if any of you are familiar with Work and Tile, it's a co-working space on South Main Street. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. One of our guests for the week who's not a full-time member is a graphic designer from Australia who's in town for the week and needed a place to work, and we provided him a place to work. So part of the amenities that this city provides. I would encourage anyone who would like a brief tour to let me know, and I'd be happy to show you around.
Makes sense. Okay, any other audience participation? 2 twofers, I love it. Jim Mogensen.
Jim Mogensen, just one observation. A while back, my wife's niece played at the Arc, so we were downtown late at night. And it was very interesting. Of course, you had all the restaurant traffic and everything else, but now we have the addition of the e-scooters, who were very annoyed that people were in their way, right? That's right. Welcome to disability, right? Right, where people are upset that people are in there. So I think it's important at some point to perhaps have just a check on what's actually happening, to make sure there really is enough space for people to move around appropriately. I mean, you know, you got to have the outside restaurant things, but it's really tight if you're in a wheelchair. And if you look at some of the parking spaces downtown, there are handicap spaces, but there's no curb cut, so nobody can actually use it. So if you have a wheelchair, you can't actually use it, because you park there and then you can't get back up. You have to have, right, the subset of folks in the disability community can use those spots. So every time, just kind of thinking through some of those kind of things, I think is important to do. You know, we have those signs that say, please don't ride your bike on the sidewalk, but now people are using all other those micro mobility options. I don't know if people have seen the the BC comics. Have you seen that, where they just have the wheels? Have people seen that, where people are just on top of wheels like that? They ride them up on North Campus. Now the engineers are doing that down the hill. And, I mean, it is new. So we need to really keep track. And then the last thing I'll say is, I was at the Watts technical meeting, and there's the bike share issue is continuing to try to sort some of that out. But I think it's important for the DDA to keep, make sure that the DDA is involved in that conversation as that sorts of stuff through. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim. Any other audience participation?
Hi, I'm Adam Oxner. I just wanted to speak on last night. I was at the city council meeting when the new building was discussed and presented to council, and a lot of the.
Adam, I'm sorry, to clarify, the new hotel or the build out of the Ann Ashley garage, or
that one, the
okay.
build out of
the
garage.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. A lot of the council members expressed surprise, or something, I guess, expressed surprise that it was put on the agenda, and they didn't expect to have anything that wasn't just more parking, add on to the parking structure, which is what they were, I think, asking for. So, and I think I'm neutral towards the Ann Ashley build out. Anyways, the council seems disinterested, but I think I do think that I like what the DDA does, and I think that improving I don't know exactly how to do this, but improving the lead time on council understanding what is being put before them and somehow communicating that would probably make sure that the DDA and the city council are working together in a way that benefits downtown best, and make sure that the communication flows smoothly. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Any other audience participation? Okay, seeing none. Do we vote on adjournment? Okay, can I ask for a motion to adjourn? Can I ask for a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.